Check 1 2, check 1 2. This is the Hotashi Victrix BFG Pro second review after a month of training. So, second review, this is going to be the Snyder cut, all the details, all the nitty gritty. I've used this controller for about a month. We're about to get into it. But first, let's do fact sheet. Number 1, full disclosure. Victrix sent me this pad. They also sent me a PS5 hitbox because I begged for it like a little after I got 4th place at EVO last year, and the only reason I wanted to do so well was because the golden hitbox, holy moly. I wanted a Victrix arcade stick with the ball top, and they sent me a hitbox by accident, but it's probably better for me. I love the hitbox. I use it occasionally, and then they were like, hey, yo, we're working on something new. You want to check it out when the time comes? And I was like, hell yeah. Fact sheet, full disclosure, Victrix sent me this controller, but they did not ask me to do any review or anything like that. I'm doing this just because it's an interesting piece of equipment. I have a lot of pad players in my Twitch and YouTube out there. I'm a pad player representative like Sonic Fox. Sonic Fox is a pad player, so unsponsored. Second thing, price. This is gonna run you about $180. You might be able to get something better out there, who knows, but this is gonna cost you a pretty penny. MSRP about $200. This thing will work on PlayStation 5. I've tested all of these, not all. PS4, PS5, and PC. Wired, perfect. I had one cable tug at a tournament. I did not test the wireless functionality. Haven't touched it. It's not important to me. I know some of us are trying to, get on the couch and play Dead Space with your girl, and you don't want to have to get up and find the DualSense 5. Yeah, I know how it is, gentlemen or sisters. Be aware that typically with PlayStation and custom PCBs, there is a sync issue with wireless controllers that stops your controller from syncing or remaining synced every 15 minutes. Just be aware of that. Do your research. Again, MSRP $200. Know what you're getting into before you buy. I'm here to help. Moving on. First bullet point, satisfaction rating. I am now able to confidently say I can use this controller as my daily driver, and after a month of using it and playing 6 to 8 hours every day, I am now good enough with this controller to use this as my daily driver and switch to it full time. I'm comfortable with this controller that I don't get frustrated and crawl back to the DualSense 5. So there was TSB in New York City. I played Xrd because I wasn't confident. I put this controller away in the carrying case and I took out the DualSense 5. Used that for my first match against Heaven Sent Tommy from Trapsimilia. I lost 0-2. I said to myself, you know what? I should have just used what I've been using the whole time instead of tried and true, because I haven't been touching DualSense 5 that much. And after that, using this was good enough to get second place, losing 3-2 against Crocs and Socks. Now, I had a ton of drops and a ton of execution inconsistencies, and I still have a ways to go, but good enough to get second place without practicing Xrd, just having a controller and having my know-how. So day 2 of Super TSB, used this the whole day, didn't go back to DualSense, even when playing Nagoriyuki. Again, it was good enough to top 8. I got 4th place, losing to Bean and Tempest. How much of that would I chalk up to inconsistencies with the controller? That's what I want to get into. Or what I found is that posture with this unit is very important. So this D-pad here, you may recall that this is the one that I was least happy with. Let me put them out. So we have D-pad A. This is the default that the Victrix comes with. In order of preference, this was D-pad number 2. This is similar to like Xbox One, whereas this one has a curvature, but it doesn't like go deep off the corners like that, right? And then this one, which is like the Nintendo Switch Pro Controller or like the GameCube D-pad, and this is the one that I used the entire weekend at TSB. This was my least preferred, and somehow I was still able to perform with it. I didn't even realize. I thought I was using this one. This is the one that I thought I was using as a daily driver. I must have forgot at some point, and then I must have just learned. Let's discuss what was I not happy with. Again, posture. When you're using this controller, you have to be careful about how you're leaning, because the D-pad module, it is very accurate. It's not really gonna fly all over the place. That also means that it demands accuracy of you as well. If you are somebody who's used a DualShock 4 or a DualShock 3 or a DualSense 5, you understand you can kind of like get wacky, get lazy with the inputs and still have pretty high accuracy. That's because the controller is like all over the place with the D-pad inputs. This one, not so. If you are not accurate with your inputs or how much weight that you're putting on the D-pad, you will miss your inputs. Like say you're trying to do a quarter circle, you can't do like this lazy movement here like you would on a DualShock and get a quarter circle. No, you have to go like all the way. It's accurate but also demands accuracy of you. The issue that I encountered was that I'm in my chair here, right? I got my chair and stuff like that. This is what I'm used to, so I can comfortably play on the desk like this, and I kind of know like how much weight, how to angle myself, prevent myself from getting accidental inputs. After 3 weeks to a month, I've stopped missing so many DP inputs. I still miss things from time to time. That's all human, right? Everybody misses inputs. I can play under the desk, under here, and do pretty good. But it's hard because usually my desk isn't raised up this high. This is important because if you don't have good posture, I promise you, you're not going to apply the correct amount of pressure and you are going to have some serious issues getting quarter circles. And what I found versus Tempest at Super TSB was that I was jumping all over the fucking place with Nagoriyuki because the chairs were not very good for my posture. Make sure when you're using this controller that you're sitting in the right position, not to be missing stuff, or you have your hands resting in a way where you're not applying too much pressure. And also your mileage is going to vary depending on the D-pad that you use. Always do button check, always pay attention to your posture so you don't miss your inputs, no matter what pad you use. So if we look at the back of this controller, let me explain to you what's going on here. This controller is a cheater controller. It has back paddles, back triggers that can be configured by holding down this button and then inputting a sequence and then binding them to the button you want to use. I have a trigger here is bound to up, it's bound to 8. This lets me down, back, and fuzzy jump at the same time. This is very cheap. Honestly, fuzzying on a pad on DualShocks me fucking blisters. And the controller is so inaccurate, like sometimes you don't even get a jump, even if you are meaning to do it. This trigger here this is a faultless defense macro. A big problem with the Guilty Gear Strive engine is that if you try to FD in reaction to a situation, you can get a Kara faultless defense input, and that is enough to get you counter hit, even though you're just trying to block, right? You're not trying to mash on wake up, you're trying to block. So using this is for when I commit to FD, and it's been a big help. The sensitivity of these triggers is also something you can adjust on the fly. Holding this, pulling this back, and then pressing the trigger. So right now you see that this is a button. Click, 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 click. Now if we do this and then hold it down and let go, this is now a trigger. These are faulty. Also, these are this is really easy to unbind and go back to being unbuttoned. And sometimes when you do, sometimes the button just doesn't work. Sometimes I'm just pressing this, and then nothing happens. Nothing happens. Like it just literally doesn't register. Now I'm used to it. I'm always double check, make sure. I learned that because of this, I prefer this as a trigger, and I'm used to it now after a couple weeks. But you can set different levels of depressing level. Feel in the hands, it was a lot to get used to. Hey, racism, hey, you like this? Oh yeah, it was a lot to get used to because usually I hold the controller like this, and that's not good because there's triggers underneath here. I've gotten used to holding the controller with correct pressure, so I'm not putting weight onto the triggers. Sometimes I press it, but usually only when like warming up and stuff like that. Feel in the hands is nice. You know, hand feel, you understand what I mean? These buttons, it's fine, it's whatever. There's no problem with it. It's just not going to be the same as a DualSense. I mean, y'all know who have a DualShock, y'all know that it gets fucking dirty underneath these buttons and things like that. It's nice to be able to clean underneath here, you know, more often because PlayStation controllers are typically harder to open up and clean, and that can elongate the lifespan of this. So, Q&A. Let's go. How am I? I'm excellent. I'm very hungry. Is it worth the price for normie? I'm not gonna tell you what to buy. In fact, I didn't have to buy this. They sent me one. Still unsponsored. They didn't tell me to do this review. They didn't tell me to use this controller. I was very interested in using this controller, however, because of the back triggers. Have I tried the fight pad? Have I tried the fight pad? No, I haven't tried the fight pad. I prefer my buttons like this, you know, DualShock style. How awkward would it be for people who prefer to have index or middle fingers over the buttons? These are not very sensitive unless you're really gorilla gripping. Then like maybe you can brush against these by accident. I think you would get used to it before long. Or you can just not use the triggers, it's fine. The rest of the controller is excellent. The big selling point as a fighting game player is these back paddles. This is huge. Oh, you're talking about the shoulder buttons. Oh. To get used to for the shoulder buttons is I rest my fingers on R1, or I have like the base of my index finger over here on R1 and then the other half of the finger on R2, and then that lets me kind of select when I want and also rest my hands on this like hefty stern R1 button without going to the floaty R2. Sometimes I'm just sitting here and I will be pressing this by accident. It can happen. Have I changed my mind on the D-pad preference? I might just stay with this one because I didn't even know I was using it, and apparently that was good enough to do everything I wanted. I still made some mistakes, but that's up to me. I have to be accurate. I can't be lazy. Do I know how much time I played on it? If so, approximately how many hours? This is after like, this is like a 90 to 100 hour review. Is the size comparable to a DualSense? It's a little bit bigger, but it should be fine. Any specific inputs that were more difficult to pull off? I have a hard time on this controller consistently doing the super input 6-3-2-1-4-6. A lot of the times I will get 9, which is up. It's just a matter of practice. One thing you might not be thinking about is this PS4, PS5, PC compatibility. Dude, this saves you $60 on the Brooks adapter that you would have to use if you were a PS5 player and you're going to locals or an offline tournament. A little newsflash about this unit. So last Friday, I experienced some issues with this controller finally on PS4 Slim playing Guilty Gear Strive at Ignite Skokie FGC locals every other Friday. If you're in Chicago, you'll know about the locals. I'm telling you now. Tag me on Twitter, ask what's up, come on down, have a drink, come hang. There were some disconnects with this controller. On PS4 mode, with the toggle here, the first sign that there was a problem was this dash trigger here stopped working, and usually when that happens it's because my finger slips on this, which unsnaps this, and then it becomes a button instead of a trigger, right? So I thought like, oh, I must have fucked it up. I set it back to normal, and then after like a minute or two, controller simply stopped working, and this wasn't indicated by a disconnect in the PlayStation operating system. Controller stopped working, and then Bridget just keeps on fucking walking this way. This has never happened before. I played a whole tournament in New York on PS4, played it on PS5. At home I play on PC, used it on my own PS5, never had a problem. This is notable because Shanks, a notable Dragon Ball FighterZ player, also had the same issue at the Dragon Ball Finals. I don't think this docks any points against my review. I'm very happy with this controller. I recommend it despite the high price. You're getting a lot of convenience with the converter. You don't have to buy your Brooks in case you're hopping back and forth on systems. But if you're buying the controller and you play at locals, you play at tournaments, you should know to look into this issue. I will be, but it has only happened on PS4 Slim. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, probably not, but just stay on the lookout when you get this controller and you take it to locals that a problem like that may arise. How simple is it to take apart? They only want you working with the D-pad module and the buttons. These are easy to take off, takes 15 seconds. Now the rest of the controller is battened down. You're not getting into this unless you look up how to do so. Do they allow you to map directions to these back buttons? Yes, and that's exactly how I do it. You could have this button bound to right, this button bound to left, this button down to up, and this one bound to down, and then think about what you could do with that. It's completely legal in tournament. Now, what is not legal is having a button bound to more than one other button at a time. Can you put both analogs up top? I think so. It's locked down, so you can't put the analog up top here. You can't reverse it like this one. Is it possible to get into leverless for a similar price? Absolutely. A hitbox is just PCB, a buttons, and a case. If you're a woodworker, you should be able to handle that on your own, but there's hitbox alternatives coming up with way less than 200. Snackbox is high in demand, but there's more and more companies coming up to fight the demand for leverless. You love the diamond D-pad, the default one. Yeah, I found that was the one that I was having the most success with, but it was also the most accuracy required. This D-pad here, this is the hardest one to use. This is the default one. But once you really pay attention to how you're inputting things, it's like fucking magic. Like you won't miss a thing. Now, if you get lazy with your posture or how much pressure you're applying with this D-pad, you're gonna find that the corner, again 1, 3, 7, 9, are very, very difficult to hit. All of these D-pads, number 3, number 1, number 2, all of these have proven usable. Overall, for the Victrix BFG Pro, it's a glowing review for me. It's good enough for me to use this as a mainliner. I mean, this is the controller I use Bridget on, so I'm probably going to keep on playing Bridget with the Victrix BFG Pro, and then when I'm ready to go back to Nago and reorient myself, I will see how it feels then. Different characters, different requirements. I'm gonna be honest with you. Durability test. I'm pretty sure this controller could take a punch. If y'all like these hardware reviews, like there's a lot of people that come around asking about the controllers and stuff. What if I did something else? What if I did this? Would y'all want to hear from me? This is the Victrix FS12 Esports Edition PS5 compatibility leverless arcade stick. Could be looking at it soon. See y'all next time. Also, please subscribe to my channel.